The 1944 Studebaker, not exactly the state of the art, but it is the state of the Gosford Bushfire Brigade. Many of the 28 tankers that make up the Gosford fleet are simply too old to do the job.
We've got 9 that need urgent replacement and 11 down the track to set us up.
When we say down the track, how far do you think they'd last?
Probably get 2 or 3 years maximum out of them.
The Studebaker actually broke down while we were filming, but no one seemed surprised.
We've got a policy in Gosford that we always respond 2 trucks, not rely on the 1 truck. We always respond another one to back them up.
The last fire season was one of the worst on record, with almost 300 calls being recorded between October and March. Once again, the machinery was found wanting. The brakes on this tanker failed, it crashed and was engulfed by flames. The firefighters on board were lucky to escape.
We'd just gone through the process of fitting a crew cab to the truck. We feel if the crew cab hadn't been on the truck, a couple of them guys mightn't have been with us today.
The brigade says it needs almost $1 million to be properly prepared for the next fire season. Gosford City Council says it simply doesn't have the money needed to properly re-equip the brigade and says if the state government doesn't produce the goods, it will consider imposing a levy of about $6 on all its ratepayers. But that can't happen until January of next year, halfway through another potentially disastrous fire season. McKenzie, NBN News.
And it was the defending premiers who got away to a brilliant start after Neil Baker and Peter Chapman made a meal of a runaround move. Saxby grabbing the loose ball and sprinting 65 metres, only to be ankle-tapped by Price, but being able to offload to Darren Slocky, who was brought down only a metre short. But quick thinking by Ross Hanlon continued the good work, and the Cheetahs were on the board. Baker used individual brilliance and a bit of luck to get West underway. His grubber kick was towed on again, and Paul Rosenbaum made a blunder that cost his side 6 points. Craig Dodd was instrumental in setting Tim Morrison on the road to the line. Morrison broke out of a dreadful Darren Slocky tackle and the Rosellas roared to the front. But Slocky made amends. Budden made the break, on to Saxby, and his pass found the former Knight on the wing and the Tars were back in the match. Paul Bowen then scored a hooker's trademark try to help West to an 18-10 lead just before the break. Then drama. The siren had sounded but referee Benson awarded a penalty to Waratah. Paul Allardyce put the ball in the air. Tim Morrison was unable to handle the ball. It was towed towards the line where Shannon appeared to fall on the ball and claim the try. But the linesman signalled a knock-on and the try was disallowed. Cheetahs trainer Dave Edwards was after some inspiration or a late tip, but what he got must have worked for Waratah as Saxby gave a sensational ball to Slocky and he put the foot down and the Tars levelled at 18-all just after the break. Back came the Rosellas and Morrison continued Rosenbaum's dismal day, just pushing off his opposite number to score wide out. With only 3 minutes left on the clock, fullback Sheely opened up West with a scintillating run and he gave it to the speed machine Slocky and the Tars again levelled. Sheely made no mistake with the conversion and Waratah led 24-22. More drama as after the siren Benson awarded a penalty to West right in front of the posts. But again it was overruled by the touch judges and the Tars were home by 2 points.
More than 60,000 Australians died in World War I, almost 9,000 at Gallipoli. No military gains were made in that battle, but the ANZAC legend was born. Dawn in the Hunter region and thousands remembered the fallen. Hours later, they continued what's become one of Australia's greatest traditions. In Toronto, Australia's newest war veterans led the march, 6 sailors and an officer just back from the Gulf War. Also among their ranks, veterans of a war gone by, recalling a vastly different battle and comrades buried on foreign fields.
We are remembering our mates who we left back at the Brook in 1941. We do not glorify war, we remember our mates.
Also remembering battles from a bygone age, light horsemen in Muswellbrook. The 12th, 16th and 24th Brigades led the march as at least 4,000 looked on. Not far away in Singleton, the young and old marched side by side. And in Gosford, 2 original ANZACs headed the parade. Jack Hazlitt and Harry Newhouse fought in the Gallipoli campaign that sparked the ANZAC legend.
I lost a brother in Gallipoli, and I'm on deck, and I'm okay. And that'll cost you $2.
In Newcastle, the young spoke out. But it was also a day for the women they left behind.
We did a lot of important work which released a lot of men to go to the front. And there were 72 different musterings, that is different jobs, that the WAF did during the war.
It was a day for veterans of all wars to reflect and remember.
ANZAC Day is a very important day where we pay homage to those who gave their lives. I've heard people say that ourselves glorify war and all that. That's a load of rubbish. If you've been to a war and seen people killed and blown to pieces, you never want to see that again.
It means a lot to me because I had 3 uncles at Lone Pine and they survived it. And I had 5 years in the Royal Australian Air Force and I'm very proud of it. It's a wonderful day for me.
We have a few beers, that's for sure, but we never forget the mates we lost. And we never forget the good times, because the good times have got a lot to do with army life. It's hard work and good and happy work too.
And of course ANZAC Day just wouldn't be the same without the odd game of 2-up.
It's not one of the most popular sports that you hear about day in, day out, but one that is gaining momentum rapidly. The sport boasts state and national teams and is quickly climbing the world rankings. This weekend at Skateline, teams from Sydney, the Central Coast and the Hunter Valley are taking part in the New South Wales State Championships in 2 divisions, senior men's and senior women's. And the standard of play is exceptional.
There's a lot of guys here playing obviously our state titles. We choose the state teams. At least 3 or 4 blokes here are actually on an Australian team, and they've just come back from Switzerland, honoured themselves nicely overseas. The Europeans, like the Australians now, they take us seriously, and New South Wales always contributes a great amount to the national team.
7 matches will be played tomorrow, with the finals on Sunday from 10:30 a.m.
It was hard sell time at Cessnock today as the Hunter Plant Operators School laid its plans for the future before Road Transport Minister Bob Brown. It hopes to win grants totalling $3.5 million, which would allow it to establish the state's first training centre for heavy vehicle drivers. The minister was impressed but non-committal.
Well, I'd like to see how we can get some type of cooperative arrangement. I wouldn't like to start apportioning responsibilities at this stage because, my motives then could be suspect. I'm genuinely concerned about making sure that this centre operates to the maximum level that it can and that it continues that throughput of trainees.
At the moment, the school provides training on heavy plant equipment, but the state's trucking firms are forced to look interstate to places like Shepparton if they wish to improve their drivers' skills.
All the major players in the Road Freight Advisory Council have been giving us very good noises, to use that term, but they're very supportive. They would like to see it developed and developed close to Sydney.
The upgrading of the Cessnock School would see it become the nation's leading heavy vehicle training centre.
It will put us probably at the forefront of driver education. That's simply because it won't make us different in a sense that other schools have some of the gear that we will have, but we will be much larger.
Unlike many other centres, it seems hunter workers have abandoned the traditional Australian sickie in favour of legitimate flexi days or rostered days off. Have you had the day off today?
Yes.
Did you take a sickie?
No.
How did you get the day off?
A rostered day.
Did you take a sickie or...?
Rostered day off.
Well, we have rostered days off, so we wouldn't call them sickies, no.
Even school students had a reasonable excuse for missing classes. Most workers at BHP Steelworks and Ganninan's Broadmeadow plant stayed at home, but it was because today was the official metal trades picnic day and not due to a drastic rise in absenteeism. Personnel officers at major retail stores also reported fewer than usual sickies. Have you noticed more sickies today than most days?
No, can't even count them on one hand, Alison. It's been tremendous. A couple of people are quite lucky. They've got their 4-day break, so roster days off today as well.
At Lake Macquarie Council, Jana Vaskovich says the car park is always a good gauge.
Well, we can just take a look there, Alison, and see that the majority of cars are in today. It's fairly indicative. We know that the people who are off today have taken their rostered days off or they're off on recreational leave.
And reports from Sydney suggesting the unofficial 4-day break has boosted air travel bookings haven't filtered through to Newcastle. One local travel company says Novocastrians have not taken advantage of the cheap fares being offered by the major airlines.
Two years ago in their centenary year, the Wallsend Swans were the toast of the town, winning the Black Diamond Cup for the first time since 1889. And today it's as though the club is being reborn with a brand new ground of its own at Marylands. At the moment it's nearly as primitive as those days before the turn of the century. No chain sheds to speak of except for an old container for the local club with no such luxury for the visitors Newcastle City, a barbecue to feed the hungry mob with a canteen in the back of a van, goalposts and a scoreboard. But the main ingredient, future Swans players and supporters getting their first taste of Aussie rules at their home ground. And the man who has been instrumental in ensuring Australian football survives in the Hunter, Bill Elliott, was honoured by having the ground named after him. A touching moment for the man who has devoted his life to the code.
I'm very, very happy about it. I think it's a tremendous thing that they've done for me. I'm all excited, don't know what to say, but other than thanks, and I appreciate it.
Back home in Newcastle after a riding stint in Hong Kong is jockey Robert Thompson. Thompson rode 4 winners, 5 seconds and 4 thirds in his month-long stay, and it is only a formality until he receives word that he has a licence to ride full-time in Hong Kong from August of this year.
Things look pretty rosy at this stage and all that, so I'm fairly confident getting there for next season, and all I've got to do is have stable support, and as far as I know you've got to have 60% or more support from the owners. And apparently before I left, I believe I had up to about 70%, so things look very good.
Robert will take his wife Jenny and sons Brent and Simon with him to Hong Kong to set up home for the next couple of years. And it may not be long before his feats are being emulated by 15-year-old Jason Deemer, who rode his 8th and 9th winners in a month today. A St Pius X student, Jason blitzed his rivals including Robert Thompson, and he would like to be as good as the Cessnock Hoop.
He's a great rider and I'd like to do everything he's done.
And the 15-year-old was in sensational form in our major race today, the Bob Dorbarn Handicap from Broadmeadow.
Hewer Sun Prince the leader, going out after it is Ecliptic on the outside, Mocha and Magic Gleam under the big weight. Little Hewer Sun Prince giving plenty though with 50 to run. Still in front, Ecliptic trying to reach it, but Hewer Sun Prince in front in a game effort. Hewer Sun Prince by a neck to it.
The government announced in February that it would be selling its 100% shareholding in Graincorp, offering its entire receival and storage network as a whole and as a going concern. This consists of 12 million tonnes of storage capacity at 270 sites throughout the New South Wales grain belt and the state's only 2 export terminals at Newcastle and Port Kembla. Graincorp handles 70% of the state's wheat harvest as well as other crops like barley. Advertisements will begin appearing in newspapers from tomorrow, and Graincorp, which will act as the government's agent in the sale, expects to finalise a deal in the second half of this year. A spokesman said today the organisation is well aware of the poor state of the rural outlook, but this is a long-term investment in what is a cyclical industry. He said interest has already been shown by growers themselves and a number of both Australian and international companies. Graincorp's sales pitch will emphasise its freedom from debt and healthy operating surpluses, as well as claims of improved productivity and service over the past few years.
Today's double dose of physiotherapy did wonders for Tony Kemp's sorely strained ankle ligaments, but he'll have to continue that rapid rate of improvement if he's to take his place against the Bears on Sunday.
I've been icing it practically 48 hours now and haven't had much sleep, and it seems to be working. I'm up walking. I'm saying a pretty good chance of turning up for this week if the improvement keeps going as the way it is.
Even though he was only on the field for about 45 minutes, Kemp's display against the Steelers last Saturday was perhaps his most impressive of the season. He scored a vital try and ran and defended strongly against the highly rated Illawarra backline. His timing was also impeccable. The New Zealand selectors watched it all from the stands.
It's a big enough incentive to play well when the New Zealand selectors are there, and you know you only get one chance when they come over and watch you, so you've got to go out to impress. And also you're not just impressing them but also the night's coaching staff, so I had a couple of things to prove and still have, and hopefully I can get this ankle right and get back out there.
If Kemp can't prove his fitness, it seems certain Rod Shoesmith will be given his chance to start in first grade. This fine piece of finishing indicated he was anything but out of his depth on Saturday. Bruce McKenzie, NBN News. The Terrigal station is due to open on Saturday, with an official ceremony scheduled for mid-May, but the Health and Research Employees Association has black-banned the site. Local member Chris Harcher is now facing the prospect of opening an empty building.
This is a magnificent facility for the people of Terrigal. It's going to be a 24-hour station. It's intended there be 11 officers here to service the whole area. We are concerned with the attitude of the trade union, which would be prepared to black-ban a community facility like this for its own internal purposes.
The dispute concerns the 11 officers who will staff the station. Those originally given the job have been moved to Sydney, forcing replacements to be relocated from Batto Bay. Ironically, it was the transfer of 11 paramedics to the Batto Bay station that sparked an uproar in the area last month. Organiser of that protest, Greg Best, has now taken up this fight, claiming local ambulance officers have been warned not to talk to the media, but have expressed their concerns to him.
The ambulance officers have already condemned the situation, saying that people have actually died in ambulances or because ambulances haven't been able to arrive in an adequate period of time, and that's an absolute damning situation.
The ambulance officers will vote on whether to continue the black ban on Thursday. Bruce McKenzie, NBN News.
State of Origin player Mike McLean had a run with the forwards tonight, even though he's unavailable for the Bears match. Despite his loss and Boyd and Sargent also out, the Knights pack is still rated as Power Plus.
Butterfield and Harrigan are now getting back to that form. We're going to go in there with a mile listing, no doubt about that.
The squad contains Kemp, who is extremely doubtful, and Shoesmith bracketed on one wing. Glenn Miller, Paul Harrigan and 22-year-old Toronto junior Steve Crowe are marked for the second row. Crowe is a never-say-die player who has impressed with some gutsy efforts in reserve grade.
I've been here a couple of years and this is what we play for, so I can only do is give it my best shot.
The sport of motorised hang gliding has been off the ground for about 8 years. Enthusiasts admit in the past they've had a bad image of thrill seekers ready to put their lives on the line. 4 pilots have been killed, but according to instructor and Qantas jumbo pilot Aidan Wicks, it's a safe way to fly.
And when I look at other things that I do in the air, I realise that it's as safe as any other form of aviation.
In Newcastle this week, 15 of Australia's top motorised hang glider instructors are attempting a tough new course. Set up by local pilot Chris Brandon, it's a move to get the sport officially accepted by authorities and set a standard for instructors around the country. Mike Cleaver from the Civil Aviation Authority is impressed.
I've come to the conclusion that it's a very good course and that we'll be very easily able to come up with an end result where we can accredit the course, yes.
With official endorsements, certified instructors can put newcomers through rigorous tests for a pilot certificate. Aidan Wicks says it's cheaper and a lot more fun than flying a jumbo.
At a send-off for a friend of mine the other day, it got round to saying, yeah, what are you going to do when you grow up? And it was rather nice at 57 for someone to say that.
After less than 5 minutes in power, students from 8 high schools got down to the heart of politics. A leadership battle was in the offing. The Deputy Mayor's job was up for grabs. In true political fashion, factions appeared with a two-way tussle between St Francis Xavier student Alderman Michael Kuchera and Newcastle High's Alderman Fiona Truelove. Obviously, lobbyists had been hard at work. Michael Kuchera emerged the easy victor. Moments later, they got down to the nitty-gritty of council business, a debate over sanitary disposal costs. From the left, pleas for an $800 charge. But the right disagreed. The meeting continued for about 1.5 hours, perhaps one of the shortest council meetings in history.